Welcome to the Our Revolution Maryland Progressive Candidate Fundraiser. We're thrilled that everybody could be here with us, and we want to wish everybody a happy holiday. This is our last event of the year. We've had some strong events across the state of Maryland, and we're super excited to be here tonight. And we appreciate everybody taking the time to donate and support Our Revolution Maryland. My name is Chrissy Holt, and I'm the current Our Revolution Maryland State Chair. And we have a great lineup of candidates that are running for office in across Maryland tonight. And we have some old faces, some familiar faces that we're going to hear from who will participate. So if you're joining us by Zoom and Facebook, thank you. It's going to be an action-packed night. We have these amazing candidates. And if you're on Zoom with us and have questions for the speakers, you can put them in the Q&A and we will ask during the Q&A portion. If you want, perhaps we'll even be able to let you ask your question live. So certainly want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. And right now I'm going to introduce two of our former leaders, and we're thrilled that they're back with us tonight. I'm going to start with Ben Jealous, and he's the former Maryland Democratic nominee for governor, who now serves as the president of the People for the American Way. And Virginia Solomon is also a former Our Revolution Maryland founding board member and officer who now serves as the CEO of the League of Women Voters. These two have been on the frontline leaders on voting rights, and they've organized multiple protests, direct actions, and have even been arrested, all to make sure that everyone has the right to take part in the democratic process. They're on the ground, they're active now, and I'm going to turn it over to Ben Jealous. Welcome, Ben. Good to see you.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you, Christy. It's really good to see you, and it's really good to be here. And I really am very proud of my role in both helping to launch Our Revolution at the national level and at the state level. And back then, helping to recruit Virginia to our board. Well, she helped to recruit me into this fight at the White House. She called me last July, just deeply upset and troubled that the president of the United States would say, as Joe Biden did at his town hall on CNN last July, that you just can't stop the people from voting, suggesting that these state level voter suppression laws were just not a big deal. And as a guy whose grandma just turned 105, and she descends from her grandfather, who was one of the last Blacks to serve in the Virginia House of Delegates during Reconstruction. Well, the history of our country, we know personally, bears to, quite frankly, bears testament that just the opposite is true. These state level laws can be devastating. So these protests at the White House that Virginia called for, that we at People for the American Way jumped in to help with, have really been transformative. We saw Joe Biden turn 180 degrees between his July CNN town hall and his November CNN town hall. And then just yesterday, we saw Chuck Schumer start to publicly sing our tune that they need to prioritize passing the voting rights bills now. And Joe Biden appears to be warming up in the wings to sing that tune as well. We are keeping the pressure on in a very powerful way. Both the League and People for have committed to drive tens of thousands of calls into the White House over the next 2 weeks to make sure that Joe Biden hears loud and clear that he's got to come out and really call on the Senate for an up or down vote on these urgently needed voting rights bills. With that, I'll turn it over to Virginia, but I want to thank everybody from Our Revolution who showed up at the White House, who got arrested, from Joseph, who leads the national, all the way down to great activists in Maryland. Just really, really great work. Very much proud to still be part of this movement.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Chrissy, for having me. And thanks to Ed Fishman, who invited me here. He texted me and he was like, hey, we're having this call. Just want to thank all of you. It's great to be back home among friends. Being able to be a founding board member of Our Revolution at the time, I can tell you it was like super, super grassroots. I remember sitting in a boardroom at NNU just trying to figure out what we were going to call ourselves at the time. We hadn't even figured out what our name would be. So to see the progress and all of the work that you all are doing is just both heartwarming, but also motivating and inspiring, because the work happens at the grassroots level. I had to recuse myself from being on the board when I became the CEO at the National League of Women Voters. So it's great to be invited back still. I just want to echo what Ben said. I think right now, the state of voting rights and the state of democracy, we are at a crossroads. So we did call for this arc of escalation to be able to continue to put pressure on the White House. There are the inside and outside games that have to happen all the time, right? But all of the challenges and the threats that we face, not only for voting rights in this country, but for the very sanctity of our democracy, is it's so fragile in this moment. And I want to give you all an example, because while we talk about why we're doing this, I think it's also important to look back on some of the things that happened in the past. We know January 6th is coming very soon. And a lot of people couldn't have imagined that something like that could have happened. So many people think that the unimaginable could not have happened in this country. And I'll remember when 9/11 happened, and if any of you read the 9/11 Commission report, they said it was a failure of imagination. That is how 9/11 happened. It's easy to talk about the bad things that happened afterwards, but really leading up to 9/11, it was an attack on our country because there was a failure of imagination to see that somebody or anybody could do that kind of harm to our country. And I look at January 6th very similarly. And so there's a point to this, because when we think about what is possible for next year, I want you to imagine a scenario where, and we're a nonpartisan organization, so I'm just sharing information, but in a completely nonpartisan way. I want to emphasize that in my role. But imagine a scenario where the Republicans flip the House and the Senate. Donald Trump is named Speaker of the House because it is completely legal. The Constitution does not require the Speaker of the House to be an elected member of Congress. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are impeached, and Donald Trump ascends to the presidency. Some people would say that that's an alarmist scenario, that couldn't possibly happen. But based on everything we've seen, the anti-voter suppression laws that we are seeing, the attacks that we are seeing on election workers, the attacks that we are seeing on local elections administrators and volunteers, the people we see showing up at local school board meetings who are anti-vaxxers, who are anti-maskers, who are talking about critical race theory, and now we see those same people running for those school boards. We see just yesterday that in DC, the Attorney General is suing the Proud Boys. We know that there are threats that are unimaginable. And the one thing I will say is that this organization and so many other progressive organizations have been on a righteous path for a very long time, because we know we cannot separate the challenges that we have economically and the fight for economic justice with the fight for reproductive justice, the fight for voting rights, the fight for climate justice. All these things are connected. And all of the people who oppose the values that we hold are the ones who are attacking our democracy right now. And so I'm so glad to be able to be here with all of you and just say that what you're doing is very important. Running candidates who are values-based candidates, who are thinking about the future, who are thinking about a democracy, and a democracy that is possible, right? We're not talking, we've seen really great leaders be elected because of the work that you all are doing and because of so many other groups who hold these same values. So I just want to say thank you. I want to say to the candidates, you have a responsibility when you run. And so I hope that they grill you and ask you all the good questions, because it is a responsibility, and I'm sure that you all will do fine. And I would also say that we join you. I want to echo Ben in the call for joining us to bombard the White House with calls. Get as many people as you can. There will be a toolkit we will be sharing out. There will be a call-in number, getting as many people to keep the pressure on the White House in this moment, because while it is not a silver bullet, the voting rights legislation that is being put forward right now is one of the last lines of defense that we have for our democracy, and it is more necessary than ever. So thank you all so very much, and I will turn it back.
Thanks, Virginia. Thanks, Ben. Wow. Yes, everybody, we need to process all of the content that you just talked about. We need to get people contacting the White House. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing to lead the way for us. So Ben, I'm going to turn it over to you and for you to introduce our first candidate tonight.
Well, thank you. Again, this movement that's being built across the country is just incredible. One of the joys of my work is I get to travel and occasionally meet with our revolution groups across the country. And honestly, I don't think any of them is stronger than what we're doing right here in Maryland. And thank you, Chrissy, for your leadership. So next, it is my pleasure to introduce a dear friend from the Eastern Shore, Michelle Gregory. She is a Salisbury City Councilwoman and a healthcare advocate in the Lower Eastern Shore area. She has also fought back against offshore drilling and the Delmar pipeline, while fighting for offshore wind farms and increased green energy employment opportunities. Michelle Gregory is exactly the type of person that we need more of across the state. We couldn't be more proud of her victory and her leadership on the Eastern Shore. Hey, Michelle, why don't you tell us about why you're running for re-election and how your first term has been?
Well, I'm actually running for state senate, so I'm trying to move up. But yeah, so we've had a really my first term here in Salisbury has been really amazing. We've done a lot of incredible and important work here. 4 or 5 months after I took office is when the pandemic first hit. And we had to overcome a lot of challenges, and it showed a lot of the gaping holes that are in our communities here on the Lower Shore, from lack of broadband access to healthcare, lack of healthcare access. The Lower Shore holds the two poorest counties in the state of Maryland. Somerset being the poorest and Wicomico being right behind them. And it really opened my eyes as to, I already knew on the ground and from my own personal experience from my work as an activist, I already knew how bad it was. But the pandemic really opened my eyes. And when, the next legislative session started, and I saw our state senator arguing that farm workers didn't deserve a minimum wage. They should be exempted. The farm workers should be exempted from a minimum wage. When we've got people who are struggling to make ends meet down here, I just thought that was unconscionable. And that's just one of the many reasons why I decided to get in this race for state senate.
Well, thank you for getting in it, and who knows, maybe one day you'll be representing District 1 in Congress. Looks like my house in Pasadena just got pulled into that. So,
welcome to the first district.
Yeah. It'd be, great to know that there's a bench that we can look forward to. Jesus,
absolutely.
But hopefully Heather will take them out.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And, it really, anybody who's, watching who's not on the Eastern Shore, it's really inspiring to campaign on the Eastern Shore and, get out there and talk to folks. There's so many Democrats who are unorganized. Our party is not invested. And folks like Michelle have really done an incredible job of really getting folks organized and turning that into victories. I encourage everybody to support her, encourage everybody to, give their wealth, but also give their work and actually, turn up and show up. Talk to us about your experience on the city council before we go to our next candidate. What was what did you learn? What's your best memory? What was your biggest victory? What stands out for you?
I gotta say, our biggest victory is one we're still working on. But I have no doubt that by the end of it, it will all have passed. So we are working on a massive housing initiative down here. Affordable housing has been lacking for so long. And while hotels get built aplenty in Ocean City, we're lacking affordable housing for the residents who work in those hotels. And something we're doing here in the city of Salisbury is we have got a three-legged initiative called Here is Home. And you can look up more about it online. But the one that I'm really, really proud of is one we just had the first reading. We're committing $500,000 to a tiny home village for our unhoused population.
That's so
And
good.
I'm so proud of the advocacy that our city department that handles our homeless population, that helps them and tries to connect them to resources and get them help. You know, I'm someone who has been unhoused myself, so it's a personal thing for me. And the fact that when so many cities across this country are investing in infrastructure that is, you know, unfriendly to people who do not have a place to sleep at night, and they're doing everything they can to sweep them out and sweep them under the rug and not take care of them. Our city is committing to taking the action at the root of the problem. And that is getting folks back on their feet, especially after what has happened the past 2 years.
So beautiful, such basic logic. You know, what you need to cure hunger is food. Cure poverty is money. What you need to cure homelessness is housing. Turn it back to Chrissy for more questions.
Right. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Michelle. So Michelle, let me pick up on this topic of, helping workers, right? In terms of just good paying blue collar jobs are in short supply on the Eastern Shore. So what would you do to help increase the wages? And are you prepared to fight to make it easier to organize unions in Maryland?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Unions are the backbone of our workforce. And I really feel that we need to have more power to organize. Right now, these massive corporations have far too much power over these folks who are working for them. And as we're seeing as this quote unquote labor shortage is happening, we're seeing that these companies could have paid a living wage all along. They could have. There's nowhere in Maryland that you can survive, even in the poorest counties, even in the areas down here that are considered low cost of living. There's nowhere you can live without making at least $16, $17, $18 an hour. So, making sure we're investing in our communities as far as providing industries that will give good paying jobs. That's why I'm so adamant about the intersectionality of things like, dealing with climate mitigation and green energy, how those jobs that are coming to the Eastern Shore, Crystal Steel, now this is not in my district, but Crystal Steel is a facility about 45 minutes from me. It's on the Eastern Shore, and it is producing the steel that's needed for these offshore wind farms, and those are good jobs. Now they need to be able to unionize, obviously, but these are good paying jobs that are coming to the Eastern Shore. And there's a way of helping our climate, helping our environment, and investing in good paying jobs and making sure that folks have a stable source of employment.
Yeah. I mean, we were fighting for 4 years ago, right?
Right.
So
exactly.
to act like it's okay that, hey, well, you have 15. It's like, hey, you didn't grow with the times. So,
Right.
but let's talk about that balance, right? Because with the environment, with jobs, with housing, and that the Eastern Shore has so much natural beauty, but every day the beauty is being threatened by the developers, right? Corporate factory farms, pipeline builders. So how can you help rally other lawmakers to stand up to the big money interests? And help with some balance?
Yeah, I think, the answer is always going to be people power and making sure that we are investing in the people, to, and making sure that folks know, what the issues are and what the difference is, making sure people know how their legislators are voting, how they are represented. When it comes to the Eastern Shore and the environment, we're one of the top areas in the nation. We're one of the first areas in the nation that are going to be impacted. We're being impacted right now. I mean, places like Deal Island have made national news for the fact that they're going to be disappearing if we don't do something different. And this region has a lot to lose, but it also has a lot to gain by investing in that sort of thing, investing in the green energy jobs, green energy, those sort of things. And I think it takes somewhat, it's not going to take much. It just is going to take one or two people to stand up of our leadership and say that, because we haven't had that. We haven't had someone who can make that leadership decision or make that, show that kind of leadership. And I think the folks here are ready for that change.
Well, we will agree with you on that. So Michelle, we certainly want to thank you tonight. We want to thank you for running for state senate in District 38 on the Eastern Shore. Support Michelle. We're fundraising tonight. We're fundraising for Our Revolution Maryland. We're fundraising for great progressive candidates so we can help support them. And we hope that we will also be able to come on over to the shore and help support your campaign. So
we would welcome you guys.
District 38. Thanks so much. So we're going to move on to our next candidate, and certainly want to thank Ben Jealous for joining us tonight. He needs to step away. So I have the pleasure of introducing Robbie Leonard. Robbie Leonard is a previous public defender and current civil litigator who has made a name for himself fighting for the working class in Baltimore County. He was one of the top lawyers in the case overturning Governor Hogan's early end to the expanded Maryland unemployment benefits. And I actually benefited from that. So thank you very much, Robbie. We really appreciate all of your hard work for the working families in America. So Robbie, there you are. Okay, great. I just want to make sure that I can see you. There you are. Perfect. Welcome to the Our Revolution Maryland meeting tonight. We really appreciate your support and help for the fundraising. And so, but let's turn it to you. Let's talk about why you're running and learn more about your platform.
Thank you so much for having me here, Chrissy. That fight with Governor Hogan was monumental, and people still reach out to me every single day who are struggling through Maryland's unemployment system. And even though we got to stop him from shutting down your deserved federal benefits early, it's still a mess at that Maryland Department of Labor, and we're still working really hard in trying to fix that. So stay tuned for more on that. But state's attorney, it's a lot different than fighting unemployment. But one thing is that in civil litigation, I'm fighting for justice. When I was a public defender, I was fighting for justice. And I've been a trial lawyer and a courtroom litigator, fighting for people, fighting to tell people's stories since I began my career about 15 years ago. So, it was at my time at the public defender's office where I got to learn about Baltimore County State's attorney. And I saw him testifying on bills just about every single day. And his values were not aligned with mine. And his values were not aligned with the Democratic Party. And just last year with the murder of George Floyd, and people like who were probably on this Zoom call, watching on Twitter, Facebook, wherever, took to the streets demanding change, calling for police reform. Many of our elected officials heard that call for action, put in bills for police reform. And my Democrat, I can't believe I'm saying he's a Democrat, state's attorney, fought against those proposals. And when I saw that last year, I decided I need to do something about it. I need to take this race on.
Thank you for doing that and keeping an eye out. I mean, we have to be able to trust our judicial system. I don't know another way to say that. And so we definitely appreciate you running for Baltimore County State's Attorney. And we need folks that are going to be fighting for the people and putting the laws in place. What's the race like? Can you sort of set it up for us? Like, what are you facing in the race right now?
Sure. Look, I'm running against somebody who hasn't had an opponent at all, a Democrat or Republican, since 2010. He last had his only Democratic primary challenge was in 2006, his first race. So what we're learning is no one knows anything about the state's attorney's office because no one has seen any campaigns for it in over a decade. So, you know, what the race looks like is it's really just a battle of name recognition on getting out that message. And so we're out there knocking on doors, you know, talking to voters at their doorsteps. You know, we're on social media, but we're making phone calls. We're sending postcards to voters. We're doing mailers. We're trying to get that message out as best as we can. And what we're finding is when we give people the choice and we present what the two options are, we like where things are going.
Excellent. That's good news. So how about a couple of questions?
Sure.
You're good with that, Robbie? Very good.
Do it.
So we have Andrew, who's going to help manage some Q&A for us.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for presenting to us tonight, Robbie. I do really appreciate that. I am first going to pull a question that was submitted in advance. And that is, the Black Lives Matter movement brought really important attention to the disparities in treatment by law enforcement officials and in the courts on the basis of race. What's your plan to hold law enforcement officers who do engage in bad behavior accountable, while also making sure that those who commit violent crimes and sexual assault are brought to justice? Very
good question. And I'm glad the way that you frame that question, because it's not an either or, right? And a lot of times in the conversations about criminal justice, especially over the past year or two, when they think of progressive prosecutors or reform prosecutors, they think that just means prosecuting police. But this past year in Baltimore County, we have already set a murder record, and we set that murder record probably about a month ago. We've never had this many murders in Baltimore County. So we know that the current system, the current conservative prosecution style has not been working here in Baltimore County. We got to do something to prevent violent crime here in Baltimore County. So we will be holding people accountable for those serious violent crimes in Baltimore County. And the current prosecutor has one of the worst records in the United States of America for bringing justice for sexual assault cases, for rape cases. Baltimore County police have one of the highest rates of unfounded decisions for rape. So when a woman reports rape and you call the police, about 34% of them, the police say, nah, we don't think that's a rape. The reason why Baltimore County police are doing that is because they learn from the top. They learn from their prosecutor. When they would bring a rape case to him, he'd say, no, she just said no, and then he continued to rape her. That's not enough, okay? He thinks that there should be like punching in the face or holding a gun to the head. And so he'll just say, no, like, oh, you just came from the bar, you were on a date together, and he continued to do it, but he didn't hurt you. That's not a rape. So we've heard story and story and story. Women have been reaching out to me since I announced my campaign and telling me their stories and telling me their cases are turned down. And we can do a lot better than that. So one thing that I plan on doing is re-educating the office on the definition of rape and what case law says rape is. We're going to believe women, and we're going to hold rapists accountable. People across the country and across the world heard about a sentence just for a few weeks ago where a Baltimore County police officer raped multiple women, was found guilty, and given home detention. He never will step foot in a jail cell for raping multiple women. And this state's attorney's office failed to get jail time for that person. So when we look at the whole history of the Baltimore County State's Attorney's Office with failures on prosecuting rape, it's no surprise that they couldn't get jail time for when a Baltimore County police officer raped multiple women. Finally, turning to prosecuting police, that rapist police officer would be prosecuted by my office. And we would also be prosecuting police officers who are doing shootings in the line of duty that are unjustified and unfounded. And our current state's attorney finds way too many of these shootings to be justified. When we see police officers shooting in the back, shooting through an apartment wall where they can't even see a person and striking a child in the face. And these officers, there's no accountability. The county gets sued and pays out millions of dollars, but the police officer is never held accountable. So under my administration, we're going to be prosecuting those kinds of cases too.
Great. Well, thank you for that answer. Next up, we have a question from Barry.
Hi, Robbie. I'm co-chairman of Our Revolution, Baltimore City, Baltimore County. And first of all, my question, I didn't have a question. I was going to ask you how you humiliated Hogan 3 times recently, but that has already been addressed. So my concern is, well, we have major concerns with the incumbent in the office right now, but what do we do as a society to deal with police unions, to encourage the police and to bring out their best nature, to bring in community policing, to have them actually protect and serve? And what do we do about this rise of vigilantism that, I live in Baltimore City. I didn't send my son over when the demonstrations were happening with Freddie Gray and said, here's a gun, go clean graffiti. I mean, we have to be able as a community, and you would be the leader. How do we deal with all these disparate elements and make our community safer and more fair and just better for everyone that lives there?
Sure. So let's just start with your comments about like the Fraternal Order of Police. But right now, the relationship in Baltimore County between the Fraternal Order of Police and the state's attorney's offices, they're kind of like a branch of each other. Okay, so when any bill that you see the Fraternal Order of Police legislation opposing, such as banning chokeholds or requiring de-escalation training, we'll see our current state's attorney also opposing those bills. And a lot of that is because of financial contributions from the Fraternal Order of Police that are accepted by the state's attorney. So one thing that I'm doing is I'm not asking for any contributions from the Fraternal Order of Police, and I won't accept any contributions even after I win. And it's, very common to give a current office holder, contributions. I'll turn those down because I don't want to just be a spokesperson and a mouthpiece for the Fraternal Order of Police. There has to be a clear separation. But that doesn't mean that it has to be complete opposition to each other, right? As you said, we have to have a working Baltimore County Police Department, and we have to have them bringing out the best. So I'd like to kind of reestablish the relationship between the state's attorney's office and police to know that we can work together, but there are some times where, look, I have to represent the people and I have to represent what's in the best interest of the citizens of Baltimore County. And sometimes that's taking on the police union.
Thank you for your answer to that question. I'm going to pass back to Chrissy for the next speaker now.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Barry. And thank you, Robbie. Hopefully you can lead the way for how other county and state attorneys' offices should be dealing with prosecutions to protect the people, to hold the police accountable, and to bring justice back to the state of Maryland. So we really appreciate all of your efforts in the past, working for us and working for families. And we certainly want to support your campaign and support your efforts to be the Baltimore County State's Attorney. So thanks, Robbie, for all your.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for the great questions, guys.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, up next is Brandy Brooks. I've known Brandy for a few years, and I'm excited that she's on our call tonight, the Our Revolution Maryland fundraising call. So we're getting ready for the elections in 2022. And so we've had great candidates on tonight, including Brandy. Brandy is a community organizer and a justice advocate in Montgomery County. She is the leading voice on affordable housing, land use, related issues, public safety, and racial equity. Brandy, please talk to us about why you're running, how your campaign's going, how the race is going. Start from the beginning. We're glad to have you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chrissy. It's so great to be here. It's wonderful to be here with Our Revolution Maryland and helping to fundraise for this organization that is helping to make sure that we are electing progressives up and down the ballot all across the state of Maryland. And I'm running because I'm tired of having to think about politics, about my own governance as something that's like gross and awful that I don't want to be involved in. For so many years, I would think about running for office and I'd just be like, oh, who would even want to get involved in that? You know, and some of us, you know, having those experiences that we have starting to get involved in politics, there's so much that feels so frustrating and angering. But I believe that politics can be more than that for us. I mean, and you and I have had this experience, Chrissy, of what it's like to be able to gather together, to share our experiences that drive us to want to get involved in public policy, to talk about how we can uplift our shared leadership, and then to go out and fight these fights and win. And that's what I want us to start thinking about politics as. It's about how we build our power, how we lift up our lived experience and our leadership, and how we go out and actually get the things that we need for our communities. And it ties back to something that Virginia was saying earlier. I am tired of people who don't share my values and who are actively trying to harm my community having power to make decisions that affect my life. And so I want to be up here taking that power for myself, for my family, and for other members of my community.
Yeah. So let's talk about your race. So you're running for Montgomery County Council candidate, an at-large seat. So say more about that. What does that mean? Why at-large? And you've run, and what happened last time? What's happening now?
Absolutely. So this is my second time running. I ran in 2018 in the crazy wild Montgomery County Democratic primary for county council at large that had 33 people in it. So it was completely insane. And it was my first time running for office. But as a first-time candidate, an Afro-Latina, a grassroots organizer, we came in 7th, earning more than 26,000 votes. We leveraged $50,000 in small dollar donations into over 160,000 with Montgomery County's public election fund. I placed second among women in that race. And we were really able to build this amazing movement of folks who saw the opportunity to live into their power and leadership. And so now we've been able to come back. We started running very early. We launched the campaign in February of this year. And we've been able, one, to just do tremendous things around fundraising. It's been so powerful. Folks were ready to ante up. We raised $30,000 in a single week when we started launching that campaign from all, again, small dollar donors, people giving less than $250. We've been out here contacting thousands of voters through postcards, canvassing, texting, phone banking, and all of this about sharing this vision for what our county can be like when we actually invest in each other's thriving. And Montgomery County, I mean, this race is so huge. We are the largest county in the state of Maryland, over 1 million people. That's 1/6 of Maryland's population. We're also directly adjacent to the District of Columbia. So what we do in terms of public policy here in Montgomery County has tremendous ramifications for the state, the region, and in fact, the country. And I'm running at large because Montgomery County is like a microcosm of what we're dealing with across the country, a combination of urban, suburban, and rural areas, home to 4 of the top 10 most diverse cities or towns in the country. Tremendous diversity, but also tremendous economic inequality, tremendous racial inequality. And so these are exactly the things that we are having to deal with across the United States. And so here in Montgomery County, we can model how we address these solutions in a different way.
Absolutely. Montgomery County does lead the way a lot in Maryland for sure. Are there specific pieces of the campaign? Are there specific, legislation that you'll, that you're interested in putting forward right out of the gate?
The top 3 issues that I'm looking at, always about housing. I'm a housing justice activist, a renters' rights activist. I rent myself. We have a massive eviction crisis going on across the state of Maryland, certainly in Montgomery County. And that was going on before the pandemic. The pandemic just exploded it. But we've been having also an affordable housing crisis throughout that time, where so many people are cost burdened around their housing. And we need to bring every innovative strategy that we can to the county to make sure that we are actually effectively addressing this solution. We also really have to make sure that we are building an economy that actually supports workers, to support their families, to support our communities, and also that deeply invests in small businesses, in the folks who have been here in our communities, investing in them for decades and need that support so that they can be the job creators, which they have always been, a majority of the job creators in our country and in our county. And then finally, we have to take urgent, decisive action to address the climate crisis, and to do it in a way that is just and particularly looks at the communities who are suffering most from environmental justice, folks who have been climate refugees internally and around the world. And we have to be doing this through our land use policy, our transportation policy, so many different ways, because we are out of time.
It's past time. Absolutely. So Brandy, I see that Andrew's come back. So it looks like we have a couple of questions for you.
Wonderful.
Yes, actually, you answered a lot of the questions that we had pre-submitted in advance. So I'm going to sort of throw out one that I've heard you talk about before, but I think Our Revolution's listeners would love to hear more about, and that's about your style of leadership. Because one of the things that I love about your candidacy is the transformational way that you talk about listening to and engaging with communities. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you intend to do that as a council member, and what the difference is going to be in how you govern as a result of that.
Thank you. I love this question. So I believe that we govern better together. I believe in what's called participatory policy making. You know, I've got a great brain. I think about a lot of things, but my brain alone can't hold the solutions to the critical and difficult challenges that we face. 11 brains can't hold that solution, but we've got more than 1 million people in Montgomery County. And together, I believe that the answers to the things that are facing our communities are there, but we have to create the right pathways for folks to actually meaningfully participate, not just give input, but to really be able to dig in and wrestle with these solutions together, to make sure we aren't missing critical perspectives that we need and experiences that shape our solutions. We also have to do that for accountability. One of the reasons that I want to build networks of residents and community members who are participating in their own governance is because it holds me accountable as an elected official to make sure that I am consistently being responsive to the people in my community. And I think when we do that, we get transformative, beautiful, liberating public policy that actually helps each and every one of us to thrive, to live with dignity and joy, and to build this kind of beautiful community that we all love, but where we also know that there are deep, deep divisions and inequities that don't match our values and don't match the reputation that we want to have as a progressive county.
Great. Thank you so much for that. I want to pull another question. I do know we're sort of tight on time here, so I'm going to ask Chrissy, do we have time for another question, or you want to move on to the next one?
No, go ahead with the next question.
Awesome.
There you go. The Wizard of Oz. There we go.
Yes. Thank you so much, Carlos, for that. Yeah, so a lot of the other questions that we had pre-submitted had to do with land use policy, and specifically about the kinds of tax breaks that the county gives out. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what you see as the role of the council in terms of determining land use policy in that regard, and how do you balance that with creating affordable housing?
Absolutely. So we need more housing development. We absolutely do. We need the development of commercial spaces that really support and match the needs of our community members. But we have to have development partners and development partnerships where the priority is really making sure that our community needs, our infrastructure, the kinds of things that we need in our county get taken care of, as opposed to extracting wealth and value from our county, extracting the ability to make sure that we have good public infrastructure and leaving us holding the bag. I mean, you live in the Up County. You and I have talked about this. When we permit development and we don't have the resources to support the infrastructure, we leave people in a terrible position in terms of their quality of life. I want us to be developing partnerships, but with developers who are committed to solving the problems that we're facing in our county around deep housing affordability, as well as making sure that the way that we're setting up taxation, that any way that we're disposing of public land is done in such a way that it is always bringing us the resources to maintain the infrastructure that we rely on. Our roads, our public transit, our schools, our public utilities, all of these things that are critical for the quality of life here and that we have to live with long after any developer is gone. And I want us to cultivate a community-based and community-oriented development field that's really ready to invest in Montgomery County the way that I believe we deserve.
Great. Thank you so much for your answer on that. I'll pass back to Chrissy for the next candidate.
Wonderful. Thank
Great.
you.
Thanks, Andrew. And thanks, Brandy, for joining us tonight. And thanks, everybody, for joining us at the Our Revolution Maryland fundraising evening. We are raising funds to support great candidates in 2022. So thank you, Brandy, for joining us tonight. And I'm going to move on to our final candidate. And Ed is running for Prince George's County Council in District 8. Ed is a lifelong Prince George's County resident and former school board member for 12 years. He was a leading voice against corruption on the Board of Education, where he fought to pass transformational education policies and hold our school system leaders accountable. Wow, Ed, thank you for joining us tonight. I'm wondering if you could back up a little bit to come forward to talk about some of the content that you passed on the school board and then how that relates to this, to the race that you're starting in PG County now. So welcome.
No, thank you so much. And it was so inspiring to hear Brandy speak about some of the issues, and we have similar issues. And so I loved all the speakers tonight and being around such like-minded change makers. So thank you so much for the invitation to come here. But yes, I've been on the school board for a while. In Maryland, we have students on our school board. So I did that at the age of 15 until I graduated high school. And then I ran for office. I filed for school board when I was 17 as a full member and was elected at 18 as a member of the Prince George's County School Board. So I've been there since then. And so I've worked on a lot of different policies, but I'll just take the last few years. We were able to work really hard with our progressive majority to help make financial literacy become a graduation requirement in our system. 60% of our students live at or below the poverty line, and parents can't pass down what they don't know. And we all remember our high school years where we learned a lot of different things. But one of the things that we often wish we would have learned was the basics about saving, investing, credit cards, the whole nine. And so I do view educating our young people about finances as a progressive social justice issue that will not only impact them, but impact their families. So it's such a big issue. And so we were able to make financial literacy a graduation requirement in our school system.
That's fantastic, Ed. It makes all the difference, right? Not only for the individual, but for the generations to come, right? So it makes them solid citizens. That's fantastic. Good for you. Congratulations.
Yeah, you know, I believe in fighting poverty in every which way that we can, and training up our young people in these strong financial habits is a way of doing that. Another issue that I worked on is that I helped write and pass our school system's first project labor agreement, community workforce agreement, where we took a scope of work and we told the contractors that you had to work through a labor union, which meant that we hired a record number of Prince George's County residents, which meant that those contractors had to provide healthcare and retirement and sick leave to the people who worked on those projects. And we were able to do that in the middle of the pandemic. You know, there's this huge misnomer out there, at least in my county, I'm not sure in others, that minority businesses and labor unions cannot work well together. And you have to pick. Are you going to be for minority businesses, or are you going to be for the labor community? And what we found actually doing the work is that we had minority businesses working hand in hand with labor unions, and all of the projects came in on time and on budget. And in the middle of this pandemic, where our Prince George's County unemployment rate skyrocketed, we were employing people through the school system. And so I hope that my colleagues who are left on the school board will continue to expand that. And we passed a lot of other different things, but
Yeah.
where you want me to go in with these questions.
Right. You can go wherever you want to, right? It's your time. But wow, that really sounds like the comprehensive work that we need all progressive leaders to be passing that type of legislation where we're empowering the minority businesses and we're empowering the unions to do the right thing. So that the workers are getting all the benefits that you're talking about, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Fairly.
And when we hire those Prince George's County residents, majority of them had children in our school system, right? And
Yeah.
it is helpful for every level of government to be laser focused when it comes to uplifting people who are in poverty in our own communities.
So are you going to carry that legislation with you to the county council, or what's on your agenda?
I intend to, you know, one of the questions that Ben asked earlier was, you know, what is something that, it was to the candidate running for state senate, you know, what is something that you learned when you were on the city council?
Yeah.
One thing that I learned on serving on the school board for all of these years is that you have to count to the majority. You know, you have to get enough votes, enough people rowing in the same direction in order to make the biggest impact that you would want to make. Now, I've served in a minority for a long time. I know how that works. There are a lot of things you can do in the minority, but in order to do the transformational policy making that we all aspire to do, you need a team of people rowing in the same direction. And so I'm hopeful that we will get that.
Mm-hmm.
Like the other races on the call tonight, my election is on January the 4th. I'm running in a special election. And so the reason I was so late tonight is because I had to handle things with the printer for our mailers because during the day we door knock. And so I can only handle those things when the sun goes down.
Okay. How is it going? And I see Andrew came back. So he's going to officially ask you some questions, but we certainly appreciate you taking the time tonight. You're right, in a special election. And we hope the viewers tonight who are in your district will take a look at your campaign, support your campaign, and I'll turn it over to Andrew.
Yeah, actually, you had the question that I was going to ask first, and that was about the special election and how you're doing in terms of just getting to voters, given the short time span that you all have in advance of that election. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the landscape there.
So there are 5 candidates or 6 in my race. And it, you know, for all practical purposes, we believe it's a 2-person race. Myself versus someone who held the seat for 2 terms and it was a delegate for 4 years. And so it is not an easy race by any stretch because even though he is not currently in the seat, he puts reelect on all of his signs, which I think is a little disingenuous, but it is what it is. And with that being said, I feel good. You know, we knock doors. I mean, progressives, we know, we organize. And so I'm not, you know, kind of hoping and praying, right? We are actively plowing through the district every single day. We have an idea of what we believe our win number is, and we are constantly plowing to get there. And so if anyone is interested in joining us, we door knock every single day from 9 a.m. to dark. And then when dark comes, we have a phone bank. So there's a phone bank going on right now for my campaign. And so we are doing everything that we can do to organize. But it's a challenge whenever you're running against the establishment, and that's what we're doing.
Of course. Well, thank you so much for that answer. I'm going to go to John for the next question. Oh, you're muted, John.
Yes,
there we
hi. So it was great to hear from Brandy because she actually came over the last time when we were getting public financing through the Prince George's Council, and she testified while she was campaigning about her experience under public financing. So we got that through at 1 o'clock in the morning, but now we have to fund it. So where do you stand on funding public financing? It has to be funded now for the next 4 years for it to be coming into place in 26, which is the way it's bill's written right now. So it needs to be funded.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't disagree with you. I support it, and I will vote to fund it. You know, I can tell you that when I'm knocking doors, by and large, the issues that I'm hearing are really around economics, you know, people's personal economics, and what is our county doing to lift people up. And, you know, it is my hope through public financing that more candidates will be able to win who don't have, you know, the relationships with the big folks, because the races are so expensive. And if you don't have personal money, and if you're not supported by the establishment, it becomes very, very challenging to be competitive. Yeah, I'm sitting here like, you know, Lord have mercy, begging for dollars, you know, but it's all good.
Well,
Great.
thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Chrissy. I was just going to pass to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Ed, for joining us tonight. Good luck. I know you're
Thank
probably
you.
about to hang up and go hit the phones again, but we wish you well, and we hope that the viewers tonight that are in your district will certainly follow up with you. So thanks so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks. Wow, what a show. We have covered a lot of territory. I certainly want to thank everybody that's joined us tonight, from Ben Jealous, who's the president of the People of the American Way, and Virginia Solomon, who kicked us off, from the CEO of League of Women Voters. Then we had our 4 fantastic candidates. Ed Burrows just joined us. He's in a special election in Prince George's County Council in District 8. We had Brandy Brooks, who's running for Montgomery County Council, candidate at large. We also had Robbie Leonard, who's running for Baltimore County State's Attorney. And we had Michelle Gregory, who's running for State Senate in District 38. And, you know, to support these candidates, we need you to join our Revolution Maryland. We need money, we need people, we need your time, your talent, and your treasures. So join us. We have a big election coming up in 2022 across the state, up and down ballots. So donate whatever you can. We're so grateful for everybody that joined tonight. And, you know, I want to challenge folks. I mean, bring 5 people. Share this tonight, share our content tonight, the Facebook Live feed, share it on your Facebook, share it with 5 people, and encourage them to donate and to join our Revolution Maryland. So Andrew, any other words for us? For Montgomery County tonight?
You know, you hit on virtually everything that I had there. But, you know, it was a really great event, and it was really great that so many of you came out to see us tonight. And don't forget, we got to elect some progressive champions up and down the ballot this June, and I guess January in the case of the special. So, you know, looking forward to that.
That's great. Okay, so as we wrap up tonight, let's wrap up the Our Revolution way. So let's do our chant. When we organize,
we win.
When we organize,
we win.
When we organize,
We win.
All right. Well, happy holidays, everybody. We'll see you in 2022 and get ready to phone bank, door knock, donate, and work for some really great progressive candidates across the state of Maryland. Thanks so much.